Welcome to Art and Soul Pavilion Perspectives, presented by Photo Art Pavilion, where we go beyond the frame to meet the artist behind the lens. I'm Jessica Lempin, co-founder, co-owner of Photo Art Pavilion, and today we're diving into the stories, travels, and sparks of inspiration that shape the work of our featured art photographer. Whether it's a moment captured on a mountain trail, a quiet morning by the sea, or a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, every image tells a story, and today I'm joined by photographer Sharon Steinbach, an award-winning street photographer based in New York City with roots in early art education and a deep passion for the human experience. Sharon captures the quiet, candid moments of everyday life. Her work blends in urban interactions, culture, architecture, and a strong sense of place, revealing the subtle stories unfolding in the streets around us. Welcome, Sharon. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited to be here, very excited to share my work. I appreciate this. Thank you.
You have been with Photo Art Pavilion quite some time, and it's been such an honor to see your work evolve. So to dive in behind the moments of the art that you're sharing with us today, I think is going to be really rewarding to be able to learn a bit more about your moments in time and your process.
Thank you.
First image that you're sharing with us today is Crossing Path. Can you share a little bit about this moment?
I was actually sitting in the passenger seat of a car when we were heading from Queens back into Manhattan, where I live. And I saw these two figures, and I saw the modern architecture against the grittiness of this Long Island city, tracks and the signs. And there was some kind of like modern and old kind of meeting in terms of the atmosphere. And when I saw these two figures, I again thought of a contrast. There's young, there's old. I'm a very big fan of Edward Hopper, and I would not dare to compare myself to Edward Hopper, but I like these kind of quiet moments where there's just this, to me anyway, this sort of perfect moment where the light hits the older gentleman. And every time I'm out in the street and I see something like this, I think of the story behind it. Is he coming from shopping? He's a little slumped over. He went out to get some air, take a little walk. And meanwhile, you have this more young, vibrant, maybe he's doing errands, maybe he's out for exercise. So I felt there were a lot of juxtapositions going on here where you can have the eye linger for a little bit and, feel something in a story, feel something in the architecture of a city. Like I said, I was sitting in a car and I kind of had my camera in my lap and I rolled down the window and I'm like, I got to get these guys. And that's how this evolved.
That's really impressive because I know for myself, I am not a street photographer. My brain just does not work that way. But yet I can appreciate that moment in time. So for you to be able to react with such quickness, because right, you weren't sitting there waiting for the moment to happen. It happened for you. And that is definitely really interesting to be able to hear about what your take was. You actually had that intention going in when you camera and grab it quick and it's like, I need this shot. And I do love the contrast all around, the young, the old, the walking, the riding. There's just so much going on within this scene that really does make the eye move, and well done.
Thank you.
Your second image with us today is artist Florence, Italy. What's going on in this moment when you're exploring Italy? Really, what captured you to pause and take this shot?
I love travel, and one of my most recent travel experiences was in Florence, Italy. And I happen to have this, for whatever reason, this innate draw to street vendors. And oftentimes they're your usual souvenir vendors and, fruit vendors. There is this conglomerate of artists that sell art on the street. And if you see in the foreground, that is from somebody sitting there hoping to get a customer for a caricature. But my focus really was on this guy because he looked a little time worn. He almost looked forlorn, like maybe he just set up. And just the idea of somebody trying to sell their art, but yet they have these quiet moments where just waiting for a passerby to pay attention, to have a conversation, to have interest. And it was just such a Florentine street life moment for me. And that combined with the character of his face, I imagine he's been doing this maybe for the last, 40 years of his life, possibly. Because like I say, I try to, in my brain anyway, I don't know, hopefully it translates to the viewer, but in my mind, I kind of reimagine a story behind, what is this guy's life? Is he out here every day? Even his pant leg the left pant leg is a little bit like dirty, the water bottle that's discarded on the floor. So again, I feel like there's a lot to look at. And if you look really closely for a while, you see the people who are smaller way in the background. Also, the angles of the paintings on the easels with the one that he's holding, to me, gave it a little bit of a sense of geometry. There's some angle in there mixed with the softer lines of humanity. So I think this is what I got to get this guy and I got to get this surrounding.
This image also has that juxtaposition going. You have this older gentleman, he's sitting there working, waiting for his next client to walk by. And right in your foreground, in that bottom right corner, is a portrait of a child. And to see the age differences again, it's almost like those four canvases kind of intertwine with each other, of canvases that bring you into the story, into the gentleman. This is really an interesting scene that you captured here. And again, as a non-street photographer, this is definitely very interesting to see and to experience, especially hearing your story behind it and what made you gravitate to taking this shot.
Thank you. And I have to say, I'm pleased that you caught young and old contrast as well with the caricature. Because I mean, I know it, but I don't know that viewers see that. And I'm so pleased that you've taken that observation and went with it. So thank you.
No problem. It's definitely, the more you sit with scenes like this, the more you're able to dig in and you're able to like peel apart the different layers. And I think by viewing someone else's work as an artist, you become more inspired. And that was just one of those things that I was able to pick up on. And I hope everyone else does as well when they see this.
Thank you.
Let's bring in your third image. And this one is window still life. What was the story behind this?
I guess as a street photographer, my brain works in a very voyeuristic sort of way. So I love looking in windows, at windows, trying to reimagine who lives there, what their lifestyle is. And when I saw this, I also like antiques and thrift shop items and things like that. So when I saw this vase, which looked very interesting at first, that was what attracted me. There, you can't really tell, but I think there's little figures on the bottom that are, I don't know if they're like gnomes or what they are, but it looked like somebody went to a flea market and bought that. And then I said, well, these flowers are beautiful with that color. And the way the lighting was and the glass, and there was like a gritty screen and those lace curtains gave me such an old-fashioned classic feeling. And by shooting this again through the glass, it came up with the reflection of these very wonderful rooftops across the street. And this was actually shot in Scotland. So you can appreciate that the architecture is very unlike New York City or unlike many other European cities. To me, this was a floral still life, but it had so much more. And the more I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, those so much here is old fashioned to me. So again, I'm trying to reimagine like who lives there. Do they replace the flowers every week? I'm imagining like an older, like a grandma type. I could be 100% wrong on that, but I think as long as you can look at something and kind of imagine the story and clearly the screen on the window or on the glass on the window that made those little spots have not been cleaned for a while, or maybe it's the Scottish weather that you useless to clean them. So I just keep creating all these stories in my head and hope that by capturing that moment, somebody else will look at it and maybe create their own story behind it without knowing any particular reason why I shot it in the first place.
It's so interesting. And the more I'm staring at it, the brightness and the colors of the flowers with that vase, and then having that against that muted tone, which is the lace and the screen and the dirty window, and then seeing the reflection of the building. There's just so much to it. And I love how the reflection itself is a little bit within the flowers. And this is just really, really interesting. So thank you to share this one with us today.
Thank you.
The lace itself has flowers in it as well. So it's a dual expression going on, if you will, or a interesting pattern happening. And I think that also adds to the interest of the scene.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I have a little sense of nostalgia when it comes to drapes with lace and little patterns in it. I think it's from growing up in an era that so many people had those, drew me to it as well.
Okay, so the last image that you're sharing with us today is Timeless Reflection. This one to me is like a showstopper. So if you don't mind, you can just dig in and tell us what happened, what caught your attention, what was it about this moment that you had to photograph it?
Well, it is in Manhattan, which maybe you could sort of tell from the background. This was one of those moments, when you talk about street photography, usually photographers say the fleeting moment, the unrepeatable moment. I kind of look at this like that. I was walking along in Manhattan and there is just this wonderful kind of landscaping flower design shop. And I'm admiring this statue. And I had been to Europe and I'm saying, wow, it's kind of reminds me of our vacations with all these gorgeous stone things. And the lighting was just so perfect that when I was looking, I saw this reflection in the window, and then this floral display were in the forefront. Everything sort of gelled with the lighting and the angle and what was going on with the cars in the background. And there was such modern architecture behind it. And again, I thought of such a contrast or a juxtaposition that I was hoping that I could capture something that kind of Romanesque and ancient into a world of a bustling city. That's how I came to take this shot. If you look at the woman, there's a little car in her midsection. Again, I feel like this is one of those photos where you could look for a while. And then there's also not just the reflection of the background, there's the reflection of the urn and those leaves in the glass. It looks a little to me almost like it could be a double exposure or something done in Photoshop, and it's not at all. It's exactly as the lens took it. My brain was getting a little complex, but my camera wasn't. My camera was just doing its thing, but my mind was like, oh my God, I see something. I see something. There's reflection here, reflection there. There's city. There's something antique or ancient or Romanesque going on. They have to somehow come together in this. And I got lucky. I took the shot. And when I, saw it on a bigger screen when I got home instead of my little camera, I was like, oh, I think I have something here. So that's the evolution of this photo.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So as I'm sitting here and taking it all in, you are all about opposites. I see so many things happening. So first off, I love the gradients that are happening here. So your main subject is this statue that's just commanding the scene, even though there's so much happening, that the building behind is just so dark. And with that contrast in shadow and light, I think is fantastic. And then you have that street line, the curb happening through it. And that to me just kind of brings you in. But there's another element that's going on here. You have what looks like you're saying Romanesque, if you will, with the statue. So that's back, that's historic. And then you have the car in her middle section, which is modern times and such a different world from the two. The cars, so that's a white car with all these other black cars within the scene, right? So there's just such a great leveling of tones and so on. And then the fact that you made this black and white. To me, my brain is happy about that because I feel like the colors would take it all away, all of that interest, everything that's happening by simplifying the overall composition to black and white, just made it even more complicated in such a good way. So, oh my goodness, I'm so happy you stopped at this one.
Thank you. I love
There's just so much.
hearing I thank you. I love hearing what other people see or how they see my images, and especially something like this that I felt like had so many details. I always wonder when somebody else who hasn't lived with it like I have sees little details that I see, but I don't know if at first glance people see it or if it draws them in to keep looking and finding new details. So your words about this really are meaningful because your eye is so good on seeing things like contrast and angles and detail, and I very much appreciate that.
The scene is just making me happy. And the more I'm staring at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, the statue is stationary, whereas that person walking by the urn is in motion. Again, viewing the people in the scene. You also have the guy in the back in the mural, which is quite interesting. And then to have that little, I don't know what that is, the tower, if you will. So to the right, you have your cars, and right above that is a little bit darker here. I could use the mouse. It's right in this area. I don't know if we can see it.
Oh, yeah.
But to the right side, it's such nice, clean, crisp contrast. Again, so the shape and then the silhouette against that building is just, all of it is very exciting. So thank you. My brain is all lighting up, and it's such a good thing.
Thank you.
And again, not a street photographer whatsoever or the reflection photographer like this. Thank you so much for adding this to today's talk. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there a place that you've traveled to that has completely changed how you see the world? A little different.
Okay, so at the moment, my brain is still a little bit stuck on Italy because I recently went to Florence, spent quite a few, a couple weeks there. And the season before, well, I had gone to Florence and had gone to Rome on two different vacations, kind of back to back. And I was just, when you go to these cities, it's the lighting. So when I'm back in New York City, you don't get that kind of lighting. You don't have that kind of architecture. There's just so much that's different. So I think when it's talking about, seeing things differently, I think it's mostly the light and the sky. I mean, there's blue and there's clouds that are I just don't see them here. And I think the character of the places that I travel are so different than even just the United States. I'll use a generalization. Even, I'm very drawn to graffiti and to street art. When you talk about, the photos that we just looked at, they were kind of spontaneous. They were kind of moments that just happened, and then I thought about it and I was able to grab it. But in some European cities, I'm so attracted to the street art and to graffiti that sometimes that's where it's worth the wait, where somebody sort of walks into a scene somehow and you get like the best backdrop. And you talk about juxtapositions, and sometimes you get a great figure or face that's painted onto the wall, and you can juxtapose that with a person or a car, a bicycle, or whatever might be nearby. So that's how I look at things. I think I have more patience in Europe for some reason to say, oh, if somebody walks into this scene, it's going to be, fantastic. But that's not to say I don't do those split second moments. I think I've learned a few things from really great photographers out there through their lectures. And a couple things stick in my mind. Once I was told, don't forget to look at the edges. When you're shooting, mind the edges. And somebody else said, when you're walking, don't forget to look up and look behind you. And I thought that was great advice. And of course, I'm so used to the place where I live that oftentimes nothing looks that special to me unless I go to special, I do go to special ethnic neighborhoods and things like that. But in Europe, it's like when you look up, you don't want to look down again. It's always something magnificent to see. And the same with looking behind. You just never know what's going on unless you're really looking in every angle and every direction.
That's great. And I think too, it's all about mindset. So here you are on
Oh,
vacation.
yeah.
You're so excited to see the new scenes that are gonna come forward for you. But you kind of have to force yourself to be a tourist in your own city, your own hometown, your own backyard, to be able to see life a little bit differently. And I think you did a really great job with the pieces that you showed us. And also all of the work I know of from previous years. It's always so interesting to see your work and how it evolves. Was there a defining moment that you realized photography wasn't just a hobby for you?
Yes, actually. But it's a funny thing because I started doing this after I had the time to do this and reflect back. Like everybody has that moment where they're not doing what they had been doing. You say, all right, what do I want to do now? And I really had, all this art background and interest in photography interest for a very long time. And I was just sort of doing it. Of course, you tell people this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I went to a very big family celebration. Many of the people I didn't know, or many of the people I hadn't seen in a very long time. And the host of the party, who was a relative, kept introducing me around. This is Sharon. She's a photographer. She's a photographer. She's a photographer. She's an artist. And I kind of was like blown away because I had not had an opportunity to answer anybody's questions like, oh, what do you do? It took me a while because I had a job that was not having to do with photography or art, where you identify yourself with a job that you go to daily, or, you commit yourself to a cause, whatever it might be. That was one of the first moments where I really said, oh, that's what I am. That's who I am. That's what I'm attaching myself to as my identity. And then I had sold a couple of prints. And the first time I did that, a remarkable feeling. I mean, to think that your art is in somebody's home, I hadn't experienced before. And so that solidified it because sometimes people will say, oh, have you sold anything? As if they want to know, are you legit in some
Yep.
way?
Yep.
Kind of a rude comment, but it's like, I get it, but I get it. And then I say, yeah, I have. And they're like, oh. So that makes them believe you're not just an artist, but you're in business as an artist. There have been a number of these kinds of moments that make you sort of almost like feel proud of yourself. Like, oh, I'm doing this. I did this. I've been getting great feedback from people. Not everybody has to love what I do because everybody knows that art is so subjective. But as long as I like what I do, and then I get nice comments, people like it, or if they critique it and I learned from it, all of those things I think solidified what my identity is now.
And I love that it was your family member that
Yeah.
introduced you. So it's almost like they already saw your potential, and it's just like I'm just gonna cut to the chase, give you that title, and now you're wearing it and you're owning it. So that was such a huge moment in your life, and I'm so happy that you shared that with us.
It was really special.
So thank you so much again for your time in spending with me today and going over your work and sharing the stories behind your scenes.
Thank you for this opportunity. So glad to be here. Was
Okay.
I rambling on too much?
No, I think you were great. I think I was rambling on for you because
No,
oh my goodness,
not
that
at
last
all.
image. Oh my God, I love it. Oh my goodness.
Well, you know it's going to be in the Southampton show. That's the one that
Oh, I
was
have no
picked.
idea. I don't know what's in it.
That one is.
Yes.
That's
All right. So now I'm even more excited to see it in person. All right. I can't wait to see it now in person.
It was interesting because when I took it to, I always take it to this framer that I love. So he unrolled it because I brought it from the printer to the framer,
Yeah.
so I schlepped it over and he unrolls it on his table and he's like, "You did this?" So I
I love
felt, oh. Anyway, I'm so happy that it's in the show.